What's going on, guys? I wanted to take some time today to talk about the final 53-man roster for the Minnesota Vikings with my take on it and a little bit of analysis. Now, I watched this team play in the preseason, saw a lot of things that I liked and a lot of things I really did not like, but as far as the personnel goes, I'm excited to watch this team, how they've become a very young roster in a short amount of time. They went from being a Super Bowl contending team in 2009 to now a complete rebuild from the ground up. Well, they do have some veterans, of course, in this team, and so I'm really excited to see this team in 2012, but looking at the roster right now, we're going to start it off with the quarterbacks, which had the main surprise really of the cuts. They have Christian Ponder, Joe Webb, and McLeod Bethel Thompson. Now, Sage Rosenfels, he was cut. He was awarded the contract earlier this year. He had like a $500,000 signing bonus, I believe, and I thought he would be the third quarterback, and then McLeod Bethel Thompson would be on the practice squad. But apparently they've seen enough of Sage Rosenfels to say that Bethel Thompson should be the third stringer, and so it's Ponder, Webb, and Bethel Thompson. That was the main surprise for me, but of course there's not really much to talk about here. I've talked about Christian Ponder all off season and how I'm excited to watch him play, how I have confidence in him personally as a Minnesota Vikings fan. And so we're going to move on now to the running backs. We have Adrian Peterson, Toby Gerhart, and Matt Asiata. Asiata made the team over Jordan Todman and Lex Hilliard. It was mainly him battling against Lex Hilliard because they're very similar players, but Asiata, he's got some good bursts. When he was getting handoffs in preseason, I was like, wow, this guy, he can accelerate quickly. He's got deceptive quickness, I tell you. So hopefully we can see him contribute this year, although Toby Gerhart's already the power runner, and if Adrian Peterson is back strong, I'm not sure what role Asiata's going to have, because I kind of like to see if Adrian Peterson's healthy. Jordan Todman got re-signed to the practice squad. He's more of your typical third down back, and I would like to see him play over Asiata in some situations like that, but we'll see how things go during the season. Now, moving on to wide receiver, there's a lot of speculation here as well because they had so many on the roster, like it only keeps so many. So it's Percy Harvin, Michael Jenkins, Stephen Burton, Devin Aromashadu, Jarius Wright, and then on the reserve/suspended list is Jerome Simpson. And so when Simpson is back after the first 3 weeks, somebody's going to end up being cut likely from the wide receiver core. It could be either Devin Aromashadu or Michael Jenkins is what I'm thinking, or Stephen Burton if he does something to really show that he's not ready or he doesn't deserve a spot on the 53-man roster. But Devin Aromashadu definitely helped himself out with a good game in the last game of the preseason, and Jarius Wright also had a good game too with over 100 yards receiving, and both of those guys had touchdown catches. And Emmanuel Arsenault was the odd man out who has now ended up on the Washington Redskins practice squad. Now at tight end, John Carlson, who did not play during the preseason due to an injury to his knee, which was really disappointing because he was the Vikings' main free agent acquisition. And now this offense is going to be very tight end focused. Twin tight ends a lot, and I didn't get to see John Carlson, which makes me a little uneasy about his health. Obviously, he didn't even play last year, now he's already been banged up. But they also kept Alan Reisner and Rhett Ellison, and Ellison really surprised me this preseason with his pass catching ability. So he also has some versatility because he played some fullback at USC, so I think he can block a little bit, especially if they want to run a lot of twin tight end and power run this offense on occasion. We'll see how much of a pass focused team this is because obviously it's a passing league now, and the Vikings have Adrian Peterson and Toby Gerhart, so they're going to want to run the football, and we're just hoping obviously that Adrian can come back healthy during the season. But moving on now, offensive line. At the tackle position, we have Phil Loadholt, Matt Khalil, of course. DeMarcus Love ended up on the injured reserve, and they signed Mark Asper off of waivers. Then at guard, they have Jeff Schwartz, who had the sports hernia surgery, and he's probably not going to be, I don't know when he's going to be ready to go actually, but we're going to assume that Brandon Fusco is going to start off in the starting right guard spot, and hopefully he can hold that down. Now, he's a second-year man out of Slippery Rock University. And then the starting left guard is going to be Charlie Johnson, who's moving over from left tackle last year where he had some struggles, but hopefully he can fill in better at guard. And then the center, of course, is John Sullivan, and the backup for both center and guard positions is going to be Joe Berger, who they went with over Quentin Salisbury. So I would say the offensive line is looking much better than it did last year, and especially if Phil Loadholt plays the way that the Vikings have always hoped he would. Like, he's shown some inconsistency, but also some flashes that he could be a long-term right tackle. And with the addition of Matt Khalil and now Charlie Johnson at left guard, I think this is going to be one of the better offensive lines potentially this year. But if somebody goes down, that could drastically change because the depth is not as strong here as in other areas. And the area I'm talking about for strong depth, as we move on to the defense, is the defensive ends. Now, the Vikings, of course, have Jared Allen, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Brian Robinson, who broke out last year, had a good season. And then as depth, they have Everson Griffin, who has so much versatility. He's a nickel pass rusher. He can play gunner on the special teams unit. They tried him at linebacker, didn't exactly work out, so he's back at defensive end now. And they also ended up keeping DeAndre Reed. So once again this year, I'm very happy with the Vikings defensive end situation, and I want to see more of what DeAndre Reed has to offer because Jared Allen is not going to be here forever. Defensive tackles, Kevin Williams, and first-year starter LaTroy Guion, who dealt with injuries in the preseason, him and Fred Evans have been on this team, and they've played pretty well in some of their situations, so they haven't shown the consistency required to be a starter in the NFL. They also have second-year man out of Iowa, Christian Ballard, but he plays backup of Kevin Williams, and so it's going to be LaTroy Guion and Fred Evans trying to fill that void that Pat Williams left when the Vikings didn't bring him back again, and they tried to fill that with Remy Ayadel last year, and that was horrible. That was a terrible experiment. And now moving on to linebackers, there was one surprise here for me, but the starters are Chad Greenway, Aaron Henderson, and Jasper Brinkley in the middle, who started off a little bit slow in the preseason, but definitely picked up the pace later. And I assume a lot of that had to do with his injury last year and him being on the injured reserve for the entire 2011 season, and so now being back out there to get back to the speed of the game and get used to doing all the things he's supposed to do as a middle linebacker. But he excels as a run stopper, but he does have a little bit of a weakness in pass coverage, and so I do believe Aaron Henderson will be the nickel middle linebacker when the Vikings do go to that formation on third down, especially on passing downs. And then the backup linebackers, they have Tyrone McKenzie, Marvin Mitchell, Larry Dean, and preseason standout Audie Cole, who had 2 pick sixes, of course, against Buffalo, a sack against San Francisco. And the surprise for me here was Larry Dean, because I already thought they had some guys that could play special teams, and this would offer a spot somewhere else for like Jordan Todman or another offensive lineman. But I guess Larry Dean's going to be there, and I think Marvin Mitchell, he's had some injury concerns, and so they're just going to have another linebacker there for some depth. We'll see if they add anybody else to the practice squad. But once again, like the offensive line situation I talked about, it could be a good unit here at linebacker, but if somebody goes down, then it's going to be a little bit more uncertain with some guys that haven't had a lot of starting playing time and have been mainly special teams contributors than Audie Cole, who was a rookie. And now moving on to the defensive backs at corner, we have the veteran, one of the oldest players on the team, if not the oldest, Antoine Winfield. I expect him to play a lot this year in the nickel, and we'll see how much he plays in the base defense. They also have Chris Cook coming back from his suspension last year and not playing for, I believe, like 10 games, but hopefully he comes back to play as he was before, because he was playing well before the whole situation occurred, and now he's likely going to be asked to step up against those number 1 receivers once again. On the opposite side now, we're probably going to see A.J. Jefferson, which the Vikings made a trade for just yesterday, partially because of Chris Carr not really playing well in the preseason. I mean, he didn't really start off all that great either. I mean, we saw Alex Smith hit Brett Swain for a nice touchdown pass in that first game, and since then Chris Carr did not really do anything to impress me at all. And now that it's Zach Bowman, really, he was pretty quiet in the preseason. He got cut as well, which were the Vikings' 2 other free agent acquisitions in the offseason. They signed some cornerbacks for some help, and those guys not even make the team. And the other cornerbacks, we have Josh Robinson, the rookie out of UCF. Of course, he has that blazing speed, fastest 40 time at the combine, but he also has some concerns about his health this year, but I think he can be a big contributor this year if he's healthy. And their last cornerback they kept is Marcus Sherrills, who they kept last year as well. He's mainly a special teams player, punt returns and kick returns, and nobody else really played well enough in the preseason to take that spot from him, and so he's probably most safe on this roster because of his return ability. But the guy I'm watching for at cornerback this year is definitely going to be Josh Robinson, the rookie. And A.J. Jefferson, I don't know a ton about him, although I've watched him play a little bit. He's 6'1", he's a third-year corner out of Fresno State, and after reading about him a little bit, he looks like he's a very physical corner, which I want to see more of in the Vikings scheme, because they run a very vanilla cover 2 system, and if they just play more physical, I think it can be a much better unit overall. And of course, last year I set the NFL record for games without an interception with 9 in a row. They gave up like 32 touchdown passes, over 100 quarterback rating. Unacceptable. Even when they led the NFL in sacks, the cover 2 system that they've been running has to be altered and changed so they can actually be competitive against quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, Jay Cutler, and Matt Stafford. And that's 6 games out of the season right there. And now moving on to a position that needs to make some more plays this year, and luckily the Vikings have a first-round pick who is very capable of that. With Harrison Smith, and the Vikings have been looking for a good safety since Darren Sharper left the Vikings after the 2008 season, and Smith is a very physical safety who excels in run stopping. He played some linebacker at Notre Dame as well, so I expect to see him in the box a lot playing against the run, and he can also hit hard at the safety spot as well. I mean, he got a $21,000 fine for one of the hits he laid in the preseason, so I like to see that a little bit, although some attitude from this defense, some physicality. That's exactly what I want to see after last year's secondary. Moving on to the special teams, the Vikings keep Chris Kluwe, very good punter, Cullen Loeffler, the long snapper, and then Blair Walsh, rookie kicker, 6th-round draft pick out of Georgia, who hit some good kicks in the preseason, had a couple of misses, and he also did very well with touchbacks, which I expect a lot of this year, and we're going to see a lot of opposing drives start at the 20-yard line. And then I forgot one position, guys, Jerome Felton, the starting fullback, but Matt Asiata can also play some fullback as well. And so that is the Vikings' final 53-man roster. They've made some more moves as far as practice squad signings. They also signed wide receiver Torrey Gurley from the Green Bay Packers. He's on the practice squad now, along with Jordan Todman, Tyler Holmes, Bobby Felder, and Chase Baker. On the injured reserve is Greg Childs, DeMarcus Love, and Nicholas Taylor. And then Jerome Simpson, of course, is on the reserve suspended list. And so that is my take, guys, on the 53-man roster. I'm very excited to watch this team this year, mainly because they're so young, and it's going to be fun to watch guys develop and become prominent starters, hopefully anyway. I have my eyes on guys like Harrison Smith, Josh Robinson, Jarius Wright. Guys are going to be contributing and also playing major starting roles. So anyways, guys, the season starts soon. I can't wait. We're a week away from now from the Minnesota Vikings kicking their season off against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in the Metrodome. So thank you guys for watching. Leave feedback on the video, please. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.